release through factories and automobiles every year 6 billion tons of carbon dioxide. Our atmosphere seems to be getting warmer. This is bad. It's been calculated a few degrees rise in the Earth's temperature would melt the polar ice caps. And if this happens, an inland sea would fill a good portion of the Mississippi Valley.
So I decided to begin following the green energy movement. Then a solar festival powered by 100% solar energy. But then a little rain began to fall. My cameraman noticed some commotion behind the stage. But the biofuel generator wasn't enough, so they wound up plugging into the electrical grid that we all use.
But tonight, change has come to America.
Rolled out a $1 trillion stimulus package with nearly $100 billion for green energy. Green was finally ramping up and everyone wanted to be part of it.
They've got to put up tens of thousands of wind farms, millions of solar panels.
We have the opportunity now to create jobs all across this country.
Branson is pledging future profits from his airline to the tune of perhaps $3 billion. $3 billion, that's with a B, to fight global warming.
Is Al Gore a prophet? I just spelled profit.
Investors came forward.
Investor Vinod Khosla, known as the father of the clean tech revolution, has poured over $1 billion of his own money.
By 2020, we think renewables will require $395 billion on an annual basis.
A board of major environmental organizations, and was leading a green energy investment group.
We build solar farms. Once you build our plant, it's free energy forever.
It's time for America to find a new energy path, just beyond coal.
Green energy revolution was underway, and hundreds of millions of dollars in green stimulus money was arriving. I decided to take him up on his offer to check out their football field-sized solar array.
We're providing enough to meet the peak requirements of 50 homes. We can meet the energy requirements for 10 homes over a year.
As a consequence of the big push for green energy,
these are the largest in Michigan. I think it's 482 foot total. Right around 140 tons of resteel, some balsam. They're about 36,000 pounds apiece. This tower will weigh 800,000 pounds when we're done.
They were impressive machines, but is it possible for machines made by industrial civilization to save us from industrial civilization?
I appreciate looking to the sky in the hopes that we can do that.
Let's just say the wind stopped right now. Just stopped for an hour. You've got to have that power.
I'm in a strange position. I'm against our addiction to fossil fuels and have long been a fan of green energy.
Long ago, one of the most dangerous things right now is the illusion that alternative technologies like wind and solar are somehow different from fossil fuels.
Have you ever thought about solar panels? The main ingredient that makes them work is silicon or sand.
This is the raw material chips are made of, sand.
This is one of the ingredients. It's actually mined quartz.
Spruce Pine, North Carolina, regarded as the finest source of high-purity quartz in the world.
So you start with a very high-quality quartz and a very high-quality coal. And then you put those two together and you melt them.
This is then melted with coal in a large furnace.
We get silicon metal and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide just goes off and you get...
Environmental groups continued telling a different story. Coal plants were closing, but Ozzy explained that well-meaning people were being misled.
Since you can't replace a coal plant with solar, they're actually replacing the coal plant with 2 natural gas plants.
Instead of using energy generated by coal-fired power plants, the solar farm will now avoid about 2.1 million pounds of carbon pollution.
This is a 650 megawatt natural gas plant. That's 4 times more megawatts than the coal plant over there that it's replacing.
Duke Energy operates a coal plant right outside of Asheville that is the biggest source of climate pollution in western North Carolina. And we are working to retire that plant and replace it with clean energy.
But what they don't tell you is that we're also building a larger natural gas facility.
$750 million to build a state-of-the-art natural gas plant.
This is the new world, 100% clean energy.
When Michael Bloomberg stands up and says cleaner energy, he's talking about natural gas.
Create cleaner energy, solar, wind, and natural gas.
Sides with one of the largest expansions of fossil fuel production that we've ever pulled off.
If true, would upend all of our assumptions about green energy and what was going to save us. I asked the same question to industry insiders.
The sun's everywhere except when it's not there.
Well, it's not that easy. We need to be able to back up that power to keep the system steady all the time so it doesn't collapse. Most likely that's through fast-acting gas plants, but also what we call the baseload plants, either nuclear or coal, that are on all the time, but that maybe can be dialed down during the day and dialed up when demand starts rising. Oh yeah, they don't like to be dialed up and down.
What's the solution then?
You need energy storage.
Without storage, you can't count on it.
You can store that, then now you're reducing your need for a baseload.
But would adding storage like batteries increase the carbon footprint?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I looked up how much battery storage there is, it was less than 0.1% of what's needed. A new generation of technology was rising in the California desert.
What we're using is a field of mirrors to focus sunlight onto a tower. The power plant itself, at 377 megawatts, will be the largest of its kind in the world.
This will become the biggest solar plant in the world. There's some people that look out in the desert and they see miles and miles of emptiness. I see miles and miles of a gold mine.
This solar facility burns natural gas pretty much every morning in order to get started up. It takes an incredible amount of energy to mine and process. You use more fossil fuels to do this than you're getting benefit from it. All of the mirrors that you see there are built by the Koch brothers. This relies on the most toxic and industrial processes that we've ever created. For instance, you'll hear about Germany running on wind and solar.
35% right now.
50% of their power.
There were days this past summer when the Germans were generating 80% of their power from the sun.
But Germany is still Europe's largest consumer of coal.
Aber wenn in dieser Region die meiste Kohle gefördert wird, dann ist ja auch hier der größte CO2-Ausstoß.
Only a small fraction of their energy actually comes from wind and solar. In fact, Germany is pushing forward with a large terminal that could import natural gas from the United States.
I too had once thought deserts could be sacrifice zones. I was wrong. Deserts are not dead. They are in fact full of ancient life. In the desert, the Joshua tree stands. The Joshua tree awaits a new fate, to be sacrificed in the name of progress.
Joshua trees are torn down to make way for solar projects.
Ozzy and I thought we would take a trip to see where it all began.
Oh my God.
It suddenly dawned on me what we were looking at. So after all the mining, the fossil fuels, the toxins, the environmental destruction, here's what happens next. Only a few years after it was built, broken mirrors littered the desert. Yes, these giant solar and wind technology installations may last only a few decades, then tear it down and start all over again.
We could do more of this or go to a larger area or use more of that. Well, it turns out there isn't more. I looked at marine production and fish production. Current acres of actively farmed land.
There are too many human beings using too much too fast.
As a global community, we really have got to start dealing with the issue of population.
Population growth continues to be.
It took modern humans tens of thousands of years to reach a population of 700 million. And then we tapped into millions of years of stored energy known as fossil fuels. Our human population exploded. It increased by 10 times in a mere 200 years. It turns out that the biggest source of green energy in Vermont is something called biomass, burning trees to create electricity.
This is definitely not the way. It actually emits over 400,000 tons per year of carbon dioxide. But once we cut them, they'll grow back. They'll grow back over a period of decades to centuries. You know, the trees are gone.
I discovered biomass plants were not even always biomass plants.
The impact on this community is severe. It's not green, it's not renewable, it's not carbon neutral, it's not anything that they claim it to be.
We're about to try another alternative energy source, biomass.
So it is a great pleasure to be here today to celebrate the remarkable step that the university is taking.
A remarkable step indeed. Where did the idea of colleges going green by burning trees come from anyway?
Welcome to the celebration of the opening of Middlebury's new biomass gasification system. It's now my great pleasure to introduce this afternoon's speaker, Bill McKibben.
The easy answer to that is wood chips. It's incredibly beautiful, but it shows it could happen anywhere and it should happen anywhere. In fact, it must happen everywhere.
And now it's time for a nature break. And it seemed that biomass plants indeed were suddenly everywhere, like this one in Cadillac, Michigan.
Pollutants that neighbors say make them feel sick and put their health at risk.
It's a stink. It's a horrendous stink.
These are the biomass and biofuel plants across the U.S. It was all around the world. Wood chips, which is just a euphemism for trees, are being exported to Europe from America, British Columbia, Brazil, and Indonesia, wherever they can get them from. Biomass, especially when you add in biofuels, even in Germany, source of the solar miracle. The only reason we've been force-fed the story, climate change, is because billionaires, bankers, and corporations profit from it. And the reason we're not talking about overpopulation, consumption, and the suicide of economic growth.
A new investment of $30 million in the Beyond Coal campaign. We have more. I'm glad to say that more than a dozen additional funders have committed to match that $30 million.
Bloomberg sponsored a UN climate session. Billionaires were in love with the idea of turning what was left of nature into green profit.
Nature takes 1 million years to produce our crude oil. Kior can produce it in seconds.
The company took over this old paper mill where logs are picked up by a giant claw, dropped into a shredder, and pulverized into wood chips.
Clean.
Green gasoline.
There must be a downside.
There is no downside.
The bank that crashed the economy, ruined millions of lives. Meet David Blood, former CEO of asset management for Goldman Sachs.
The order of $40 to $50 trillion worth of capital.
And who was going to help the man from Goldman Sachs?
Bill McKibben.
It's entirely dependent on what kind of political will we can muster. And if we do not get this done very fast, then we're not going to get it done.
Our next guest has been called our nation's leading environmentalist.
My guest tonight is on a global crusade.
We can't justify investing our money in companies that are basically running Genesis backward.
I found less than 1% solar and wind, and 99% things like mining, oil and gas infrastructure companies, Archer Daniels Midland, one of the world's largest producers of biofuel, logging and paper companies, and banks. Lots of banks, including BlackRock, the largest financer of deforestation on Earth.
The business that they're engaged in is actually destroying our life support system.
The U.S. Navy has a special message this year. It is time to turn green. Joining the vessels is what the U.S. Navy calls its Great Green Fleet of warships powered by fuel from renewable sources like algae, grass, and animal fat.
Animal fat. You might ask yourself, How could men destroy what remains of nature to enrich themselves? Well, that's why they're billionaires, and you're not. The takeover of the environmental movement by capitalism is now complete.
Now we are facing the greatest sets of issues that we've seen in my lifetime. It's time now for a new generation to jump up on the stage and create a habitable country, a habitable planet that we can all enjoy. Are you that generation? I need to thank Building Energy, which provided so much solar power to this that we've powered the entire event with solar energy.
But when I went backstage to see what was really going on, I found the installer.
The concert is run by diesel generation.
Oh, okay.
And we'd also like to thank our incredible corporate sponsors who've been behind the movement to end extreme poverty. We want to thank Toyota, Citibank. Without these partners, it wouldn't be possible. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone.